my people of the world. Welcome back to My Kind of Love, the podcast that is about all things love and healthy relationships. I'm Olivia Baylor, licensed clinical therapist, relationship coach, and book author. Today, we're taking a 5-minute in depth look at relationship by discussing domestic violence, and our topic today is going to be using economic abuse. Plus, you will be given homework to work on your relationship goals at the end of this podcast. So, let's get started. I want to do a check in to see how everybody did with their homework, which was to work on privilege and using privilege that they even experienced in their relationship, how you got out of it, how you still in it, and how you're thinking about getting out of it, and what kind of reflections you have had after that. So today we're going to talk about using economic abuse. Some examples of using economic abuse include preventing them from getting or keeping a job, making them ask for money, giving them an allowance, taking their money, not letting them know about or have access to family income. So we see this, I've seen this happen a lot in relationships where finances are usually the main controller, preventing them from getting or keeping a job. So ways that they do this is they will pop up at your job, cause issues at your job, make the person take off a lot of times from the job, making them late to go to work. So they're trying to make it where it's harder for them to keep a job. Again, this is all about kind of like that isolation method of keeping them home into one space. So they think of different methods to do these things. Making them ask for money. So if they're not working, then they have to ask you for money, or you give them an allowance and say, here is an allowance. Taking their money from them, so they'll be working and then you'll take the money and they don't know any aspect of what's happening. Like the money's just gone. They don't know if you're using it to pay a bill. They know nothing. And that leads into the next one, is not letting them know about or have access to family income. So they don't know anything about the family income. That's completely gone. Now, I want to say this because, again, I work with a wide range of clients, both in the coaching aspects and in the therapy aspect. I am aware of cultural expectations or cultural um, considerations that have to be known. That in certain cultures, this is not considered a unhealthy relationship method, and this is not considered a power method. Let me further clarify. There can be certain relationships that this is, and cultural relationships where it's implied within that culture that the person who may be either the male or male figure in that relationship primarily handles the finances of that relationship. And that's fine. That is something that is a cultural thing, and that is something that they have discussed and they've talked about. Both people are aware of this expectation, or this is something that they, have implemented would happen in the relationship. And so it is something that the finances is handled by this one person. They can openly discuss it or not openly discuss it, but it's not used as a power thing in the relationship. Some relationships and some cultures do typically do um, allowances for a partner if the other person is the primary breadwinner, or um, they have problems with money management. Then the other person will provide them with like an allowance that they have to try to help them with money management. The other person uses the money to pay bills, or takes care of other obstacles or situations. They will make it where it's a little bit different, set up for the person. So it is understandable that these are the things that they will, in a sense, do. Okay, so this is something that they will, in a sense, do. They will eventually, um, do this as a part of a cultural thing, and it's not necessarily something that is an abuse-related thing. So I say that because with all things that I'm discussing, we have to look at the cultural aspects of it. But this section right here, when it's talking about economic abuse, like this is literally abusive when the person is like taking their paycheck, they come back, they take their paycheck, they're begging them for money for food, just to have food in the refrigerator, because the person's like, oh, well, you don't need to eat. Like, this is what I'm talking about when I say abusive, not in the sense of it is a worked upon agreement, that this is something that they openly do, and something that is also a cultural thing, that culturally it happens. Now, it has to be something that is expected and agreed upon with both parties, and not necessarily where I just do this and the other party is like, oh, well, I don't like that, and they keep doing it. That's a different kind of story. All right. So the homework I'm going to have you do is talk about if you've ever been in this type of relationship with somebody where they have used economic abuse in order to maintain control over that relationship, using the examples that I have given. Okay. And then next week will actually be the last part of the power and control wheel because we'll be on the last section next week. So I hope that you have listened to all the different aspects. And when we meet next time, you'll be working on your eighth part of it and you'll be able to identify the power and control wheel and those different sections of it. So I want to thank everyone who joined me on My Kind of Love podcast. Today we discussed domestic violence and we talked about using economic abuse, and you provided with homework to work on economic abuse with the examples that I gave you to see if you've experienced them. You just write down how you felt, if you've ever been in that relationship, if you have not been in a relationship, if you viewed that relationship, anything in relation to it, so that you can have a clear understanding of it. I look forward to meeting you again to continue on the journey. Don't forget to subscribe to my podcast, blog, and YouTube channel. You can find more information and goodies on my website at www.oliviabaylor.com. That's www.oliviabaylor.com. Take care and stay safe.